My husband walked out on me while our son was fighting cancer, called me worthless, a gold digger living off his money. 2 years later, he showed up at my office, begging. See, he never knew the truth about who I really was, and when he found out, girl, let me tell you, they say what's done in the dark always comes to light, but sometimes, honey, you have to let people sit in that darkness a little longer, let them get comfortable, let them show you exactly who they are when they think you have nothing, because that's when the truth reveals itself. My name is Gabrielle, and this is the story of how I lost everything I thought mattered and discovered I never needed it in the first place. If you've ever been underestimated, discarded, or told you weren't enough, stay with me. Hit that subscribe button because this story will remind you that your value was never up for debate. Drop a comment if you've ever had to prove someone wrong just by living your truth. Now let me take you back to where it all started. I met Michael at a charity gala in 2010. I was 28, wearing a dress I'd bought specifically because it didn't scream money. I'd learned early that showing up as myself, as Gabrielle Monroe, heiress to a $32 billion empire, meant people treated me like a walking dollar sign instead of a person. So that night, I was just Gabrielle. No last name, no title, just a woman who worked in consulting, or so I told people. Michael was 35, charming in that confident way that comes from building something with your own hands. He'd started a tech company from his garage, and it was finally gaining traction. When he talked about his dreams, his eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. He didn't ask about my family or my background. He just wanted to know about me, what I thought, what I liked, what made me laugh. For the first time in my adult life, I felt seen for who I was, not what I had. We got married a year later. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. My family, of course, knew who I was marrying and they had their concerns. My mother pulled me aside the night before the wedding and said, "Baby, are you sure you want to keep this secret?" Marriage is about honesty. But I was stubborn. I'd watched my mother's marriage nearly crumble under the weight of our family fortune. I'd seen cousins married and divorced by people who loved the Monroe name more than the Monroe person. I wanted something real, something that was mine. So I kept my secret, and I became Mrs. Michael Harrison, the supportive wife, the woman behind the man. And honestly, for a while it was beautiful. I helped him build his company without him ever knowing the extent of my expertise. When he'd come home frustrated about a business decision, I'd ask questions, guide him towards solutions. He thought I was just being a good listener. He didn't know I'd been trained since childhood to run a billion-dollar empire. My grandfather used to sit me on his knee and teach me about market trends before I could even tie my shoes. By the time I was in college, I was sitting in on board meetings, but to Michael, I was just his wife, his partner, and I was okay with that. We had our son Isaiah in 2014, and my whole world shifted. That little boy became my everything. Michael was a good father then, present, involved. We'd take turns doing the 2 a.m. feedings, and he'd sing off-key lullabies that made Isaiah giggle even as a baby. Those were the golden years. The years I look back on and wonder if I imagined how good things were, or if they were really that perfect. Then 2018 happened. Michael's company went public, and overnight, he became a billionaire. $2.3 billion to be exact. I was proud of him, truly. He'd worked hard, sacrificed so much. But money does something to people. It's like a mirror that shows you who you really are when you think you're invincible. Michael started changing. The man who used to ask for my opinion on everything suddenly had all the answers. He started calling me just a housewife in front of his business partners, started making jokes about me not understanding the corporate world. At dinner parties, when I'd offer insights, he'd talk over me or change the subject. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. Here I was, running a $32 billion empire under a different name, taking calls in my home office while he thought I was planning dinner parties. I'd be on video conferences with CEOs and investors, then hang up and walk downstairs to ask my husband how his day was. The double life was exhausting, but I'd made my choice. I'd married him as just Gabrielle, and I was determined to honor that. That's when Veronica entered the picture. 25 years old, Instagram influencer, model, the kind of woman who made a career out of being beautiful and unattainable. Michael met her at some tech conference in Miami, started following her online. Then came the late nights at the office, the business trips that seemed to multiply, the phone he'd flip over when I walked into the room. I'm not stupid. I knew what was happening. But I also knew something Michael didn't. I knew my worth wasn't tied to whether he could see it. So I watched. I waited. I let him think I was clueless. Then, in the summer of 2019, our world stopped. Isaiah was 5 years old when he complained about being tired all the time. I took him to the doctor thinking maybe it was anemia or a growth spurt. They ran tests, more tests. Then they sat us down and said the word no parent ever wants to hear. Leukemia. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia, to be specific. My baby. My 5-year-old baby who still believed in superheroes and thought broccoli was a weapon. Cancer. I remember sitting in that doctor's office and feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath me. Michael held my hand, and for a moment, I thought maybe this tragedy would bring us back together. Maybe this would remind him what actually mattered. I was wrong. Those first few weeks, Michael showed up. He was there for the initial treatments, the scary conversations with oncologists. But then, slowly, he started pulling away. He'd miss appointments because of work. He'd show up late to the hospital because of meetings. I'd be sitting there holding Isaiah's hand while they pumped poison into his tiny body to kill the poison already in his blood, and Michael would be texting. I saw her name. Veronica. Even then, even while our son was fighting for his life, there was one day, one specific day that I'll never forget. Isaiah was scheduled for a critical surgery. They needed to put in a central line for his chemotherapy. He was terrified, kept asking for his daddy. I called Michael 17 times. 17. He didn't pick up once. I had to hold my baby's hand as they put him under anesthesia, and I had to be strong while every part of me was breaking. Michael showed up 3 hours after the surgery was done. His excuse? Important business call he couldn't miss. But his collar was wrong. Lipstick on his neck that he'd tried to wipe off. He didn't even have the decency to hide it properly. That night, I confronted him. Not about Veronica specifically, but about everything. About his absence. About his priorities. About the man he'd become. And you know what he did? He turned it on me. Said I was being dramatic. Said I didn't understand the pressure he was under, the responsibility of being a billionaire. Then he said the words that would change everything. He looked me dead in my eyes and said, "You're just a housewife who contributes nothing. You've been living off my money since we got married. Veronica is everything you're not. She's successful, ambitious, independent. She built something of herself. What have you done besides spend my money and raise our kid?" I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just looked at him and nodded, because in that moment, I realized he'd never really known me at all. And if he couldn't see my value when I was standing right in front of him, holding our family together while our son fought cancer, then he never would. Michael filed for divorce in January 2020. Didn't even have the courage to tell me himself. I got served papers at the hospital while Isaiah was getting his treatment. His lawyer asked for full custody, knowing I'd never leave my son. Offered me what they called a generous settlement of $50 million. In court, his legal team painted me as a gold digger who'd trapped him with a pregnancy. Said I had no skills, no career, no education, no value outside of being his wife. They tried to prove I was an unfit mother because I'd never worked a real job. The disrespect was almost impressive in its thoroughness. My lawyer, who knew exactly who I was, kept looking at me like I'd lost my mind when I agreed to their terms. $50 million. Primary custody of Isaiah. Michael could have visitation whenever he wanted, though we both knew he probably wouldn't use it much. I signed those papers without a fight, and Michael's lawyer actually smirked at me. Like I was pathetic. Like I was desperate. Like I'd just taken the scraps they'd thrown me and should be grateful. Michael moved in with Veronica the day our divorce was finalized, posted it all over social media, her in his penthouse, wearing his shirts, living the life that was supposed to be mine. People sent me the photos, well-meaning friends who thought I needed to know. I looked at them once and then blocked it all out. I had more important things to focus on, like my son, like keeping him alive, like being there for every treatment, every doctor's appointment, every scary moment when his numbers dropped and we didn't know if he'd make it. Isaiah went into remission in late 2020. My baby survived. And he survived because I had access to the best doctors money could buy. My money. The money Michael never knew I had. See, here's the part Michael never knew. My real name is Gabrielle Monroe. My grandfather started Monroe Industries in 1952 with nothing but a dream and a work ethic that refused to quit. He built an empire: manufacturing, real estate, tech investments, pharmaceutical companies. By the time he passed and left it to my mother, then to me, the family net worth was $32 billion, with a B. I'm not just an heiress sitting on inherited wealth. I'm the CEO. I run the whole operation under my professional name. I make decisions that affect thousands of employees and billions of dollars. That consulting work I told Michael about? Those were board meetings, conference calls with international investors, negotiations that would make his little tech company look like a lemonade stand. I kept my finances completely separate. Every dollar Michael thought I was spending of his money, mine. That modest car I drove, paid for with my money. Those charity donations he thought were so generous, I matched them from my own accounts and never told him. I lived below my means, played the role, kept the secret. Because I needed to know if he loved me or the idea of what I could give him. Turns out he didn't love either. While I was rebuilding my life and fighting for my son, Michael's empire was crumbling. The tech market shifted in 2021, and without my guidance, he made every wrong decision possible. Invested in companies that tanked, launched products nobody wanted. His stock plummeted. His net worth went from $2.3 billion to $400 million. Still rich by most standards, but in his world, devastating. And Veronica? Oh, she was expensive. Designer everything. Demanded trips to Dubai, Paris, Monaco. Jewelry that cost more than most people's houses. She wasn't interested in being a stepmother to Isaiah. The few times Michael brought our son around her, she treated him like an inconvenience. A sick kid who reminded her that Michael had a whole life before her. As Michael's money got tighter, Veronica got meaner. Started complaining that he wasn't the man she thought he was, that he'd promised her a certain lifestyle. By early 2022, she left him. Didn't just leave, she traded up, found herself an oil executive worth $5 billion, and moved to Texas without even a goodbye text. Michael was devastated. The woman he'd destroyed his family for had used him as a stepping stone. The poetic justice was almost too perfect. But here's the thing about Michael. He's not completely stupid. When his business started failing, he wanted to reach out to me for advice. He'd remembered that I used to help him back when he actually listened, so he started looking for me, tried to find me through mutual friends, searched online. That's when he found it, an article in Forbes. Gabrielle Monroe, the quiet billionaire revolutionizing tech investment. There was my photo, my real name, my company, my net worth, $32 billion. The article detailed my rise to CEO, my business philosophy, my strategic investments, and there, in a small paragraph near the end, it mentioned my previous marriage to tech entrepreneur Michael Harrison. The press had a field day, headlines everywhere. Billionaire called ex-wife worthless, didn't know she was worth $32 billion. Man leaves cancer patient and wife for influencer, discovers ex is richest woman in America. The $50 million mistake, how one man lost it all. Michael became a laughingstock, a cautionary tale. The man who was so blinded by his own ego that he couldn't see the treasure he had. His business partners questioned his judgment. His investors wondered what else he'd missed. His reputation was destroyed, not by me, but by his own actions finally catching up with him. Spring 2022. I'm in my corner office on the 45th floor, reviewing quarterly reports, when my assistant calls. Security has someone at the front desk, Michael Harrison, asking to see me. I could have said no, could have had security escort him out, but I was curious. So I told them to send him up. He walked into my office looking like a different man, older, tired. The confidence that used to radiate off him had been replaced with something that looked a lot like shame. He stood in front of my desk, this massive mahogany thing that cost more than his first car, and he just stared. At the view, at the office, at me, at the woman he thought he knew. I didn't make it easy for him. I sat back in my chair and waited. Let the silence stretch. Finally, he spoke. I didn't know. Gabrielle, I didn't know who you were. I almost laughed. You never asked, Michael. He tried to apologize, said he'd made a terrible mistake, that Veronica had used him, that he'd been a fool, that he wanted another chance, that we could be a family again, for Isaiah's sake, give our son the life he deserves with both parents. I listened to all of it, stayed calm, professional. When he finished, I took a breath and told him the truth. Michael, you didn't leave me because I was poor. You left because you thought I was beneath you. You left because in your mind, I had no value outside of what I could do for you. You abandoned your sick child because your ego was more important than his life. Veronica didn't use you. She just did to you what you did to me. She found someone she thought was better and moved on. The difference is, Isaiah and I didn't need you to survive. We never did. I told him we were done. That I appreciated the apology, but it changed nothing. That we'd co-parent civilly for Isaiah's sake, but that's where it ended. I showed him to the door and I watched him leave. No tears, no anger, just peace. Because I'd already mourned the man I thought he was. The man standing in my office was just a stranger who used to know me. Life now is good. Isaiah is 11 years old, healthy and thriving. He's smart as a whip, funny, kind. He knows both his parents, but he lives primarily with me. Michael has visitation rights, though he doesn't use them as much as he probably should. We co-parent civilly. We show up to school events. We don't fight in front of our son, but we're not friends. We're just two people who share a child and a past we'd both probably like to forget. Michael is rebuilding his company. He's humbled now, makes better decisions. He'll probably never reach the heights he once had, but he'll be fine. And me? I'm thriving, running my empire, raising my son, living my truth. I don't need validation from anyone anymore. I know my worth, and it was never up for debate. You want to know what I learned from all of this? Never let anyone define your worth. Your value isn't determined by who can see it. Sometimes the people who dismiss you are just revealing their own limitations. Silence is sometimes the best strategy. You don't have to announce your worth to everyone. The right people will recognize it and the wrong people will reveal themselves. Keep something for yourself. In relationships, in business, in life, don't give everything away just to prove you're trustworthy. Protect your peace. The truth always surfaces. You don't have to force it. Lies have short legs. Eventually, everything comes to light. And finally, karma isn't revenge. It's consequence. I didn't destroy Michael. He destroyed himself by underestimating the woman who loved him and overestimating the woman who used him. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more real-life stories about overcoming betrayal and finding your power. Comment below and tell me, have you ever been underestimated by someone who later regretted it? What's your story? I want to hear from you. Remember, your value isn't determined by who can see it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well. It's knowing your worth even when others don't. It's walking away from people who can't appreciate you and building a life so beautiful that their absence becomes irrelevant. Stay strong, stay focused, and never let anyone make you feel small. Until next time, this is Gabrielle, reminding you that you are enough. Always have been. Always will be.